Beautiful. All right, so thank you, Donna. Hello, everyone. My name's Charlotte. I am one of the student enrolment advisors here at AIT in Sydney. And on the chat, we will have Donna, and we'll also have Thais, our international team. Give us a little wave, Thais. Are you there? Yay. Okay, great. Thank you so much. And we've got Adam, our educator. Are you there, Adam?
Oops.
Okay, Adam will be coming on shortly to give us a demonstration on our 3D design. He'll give us a little demo.
I'm here now. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, I can hear you.
Hi, how you doing? Sorry, I just had my my mic muted there. So
no worries, Adam. Well, do you want to show us your demo now? I'll stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, sure.
Great, thanks.
Hello, how you doing? Can you see me all right?
Yep.
Cool. Awesome. Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to the open day here at AIT. My name's Adam, and I'm one of the educators down in Melbourne. I head up the 3D subjects at AIT. That includes 3D modelling, 3D animation, and all of the disciplines that go along with those subjects, including texturing, lighting, rigging. 3D is a huge field. It's very diverse, and there's a lot of different aspects to it. So we encompass all of that in the subjects that we teach here at AIT. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an insight into 3D here at AIT, starting off with a little demo in the software that we use. I'll just share my screen so you can see that. And then we'll give you a bit of insight into the subjects, the specific 3D subjects at AIT, and of course how that works in with the courses that you may want to study here, the Bachelor in Interactive Media and the diploma level. So can you guys see my screen all right? Yep.
Yep, I can see it. Great.
Cool. Okay, so I'm going to start off, firstly, a little bit about myself. I've worked in the industry for about 20 years as a 3D artist and 3D animator, a bit of a 3D generalist. I've worked in television animation and in game development as well. And the thing with 3D, of course, is it spans multiple disciplines. So you can apply it to 3D animation, you can apply it to game development, you can apply it to films, obviously with CGI, incorporating 3D assets, 3D characters, 3D creatures, spaceships, monsters, aliens, orcs, dragons, dinosaurs. All of those things are made in 3D, and they're surfaced in 3D, which means they have textures being put on them. And then they're rigged so that animators can animate them, and then they're animated and lit and incorporated in any one of those applications. So here's a little demo that I've been putting forward. I was listening to Nick and William and the guys before talking about software. The software that we focus on with 3D is industry standard as well. It's called Maya, Autodesk Maya, and I'm sure many of you might have actually heard of it before. And it's used everywhere. So it's used at ILM, it's used at Pixar, it's used at Disney, it's used at Weta Digital. And in Melbourne here, it's used at Method Studios or Lumiere Pictures. All of the big studios really focus on this software when they're creating 3D assets, either backgrounds, props, or animated characters. So it is an industry standard. And I heard Nick before in 2D animation talking about Toon Boom as a standard. And that's what we try and facilitate here at AIT. We give you tuition, practical, hands-on, skill-based tuition in software and tools that will hopefully get you a job in the studio that you want to work at. So there's many different applications in 3D that some people might be aware of: Blender, 3D Studio Max, Houdini. But Maya is still a generalist industry standard, and it's a fantastic piece of software, and is responsible for modeling, texturing, lighting, rigging, animation, as well as physical simulations. So here's a little demo. You might have recognised this guy. It's Rocket Raccoon from Guardians of the Galaxy. It's a little animated character rig, and I put forward this little animation. See if you can hear this. You guys getting the sound on that?
Yep.
Cool. So hopefully it's playing back in real time as well. It's not too laggy for you. And one of the challenges, obviously, of working, demonstrating online, is, of course, lag, computer lag that comes with bandwidth problems on the internet. So hopefully you're getting an idea of basically that little animated cycle that I'm putting there with firing weapon and shooting out some stuff. And I put some sound effects in just before I started because the question that came up before about using sound, well, sound is part of the experience in games or films or animation. And yes, we give you some great audio subjects that you can learn from as well here at AIT and incorporate those into the game that you're making or the animation that you're creating or the film, obviously, that you're recording. So it's a big part of it. I think George Lucas said that audio is 50% of the experience of any audience. And so, yeah, that's a big part of it as well. When you look at this, it looks pretty impressive. I think it looks pretty impressive. But it's really, if we break it down to really its core elements, if I show you in a perspective mode here, you might be able to see it a little bit easier without that background. And if I take off the textures, and if I tone down the lighting or use default lighting, you'll see all it really is a grayscale model. And all I've got is this character sitting on this model. And it's basically a polygon mesh. So these are basically assets, 3D assets that we create in this software. And there's many subjects which we get you to build your own characters and surface your own characters and rig your own characters. So we teach you 3D modeling as a first introduction to Maya and to using this software. You can see I'm navigating around this model, and many of you might have had this sort of experience or this functionality, seen it in games that you're playing or even 3D software that you might have experimented with, Unity or Blender, for example. And if I select the models, you can see what they're made of. They're literally just made of polygons. Polygons are little components of little faces, edges, vertices that are used to construct something in 3D. And I can navigate around, I can zoom in and out, I can look at it from different angles. And basically, this is really, the starting point of 3D. And we teach you 3D modeling with this industry standard software, which can get you a job in a studio as a 3D modeler. So even if you're not interested in 3D animation, even if you just want to make assets, weapons, accessories, background elements, set extensions for film, props, vehicles, spaceships, you can learn those skills as well. With this model, we then, of course, put surfacing on to the models, and that's like a texture and a material that we use to create the look. And it's called look dev in the industry, where you create the overall look of the model. We use advanced surfacing techniques, and we teach you that to create color maps that go onto the model, bump maps that go onto the model. If I show you the texturing, you'll see here without lighting, this model has been created and is matching basically the asset from the film Guardians of the Galaxy. I should mention that this model was created by Matthew Lowe, who's an experienced 3D artist and rigger, and he provides these rigs for the community to use and to learn from, particularly student animators or student 3D artists. So I have to give him that credit where it's due. But you can see it's a great little model, and it's got this texture, this color texture map that's wrapped around the 3D forms here. And the same with the gun, the weapon. It's a huge weapon, really. It's looks too big for a raccoon of that size, but he seems to handle it okay. And that's the next stage. We put that surfacing on there. You can see if I look at that model, if I look at his face, I might be able to pull up the way that is. No, I can't. I was going to try and show you the texture map, but it's hidden from view at the moment. But basically, you get the idea that this colouring and this texturing is wrapped around the 3D mesh, and we teach you how to do that, how to actually apply that texturing onto the mesh. You can see here, this one is unhidden, this background, which is really just this rock is really just a cube, and it has this texture here painted onto that cube. And basically that's what gives you the surfacing, the detail that you see in a lot of 3D assets, the scales on the dragon, or the detail on the spaceship that's in Star Wars that flies past. So surfacing is the next stage that we teach you as well in 3D. And so for those of you that are good at drawing or good at painting, or are interested in the surface detail of a 3D asset, we teach you that skill set as part of the pipeline. And that is also a specialist role in 3D animation or game studios, where you're creating textures and you're creating the surface detail. The next thing we can look at is the elements that make this static character move. And in order to do that, we have to rig it, which means basically giving it articulation, giving it the capacity so that you can move it around as an animator, so you can pose it in different positions, and you can set a keyframe on those poses and animate. It's a bit similar to drawing animation, except you don't do any drawing, you just pose the model, but you're still creating poses. And I'll show you a little bit of a demo about how to extend this pose a bit later on. But the first stage is really to rig it so it can be animated. If we look very carefully, I can turn on the bones here, and they're a bit big at the moment, so I'm just going to reduce their size so that we can see them a little bit more easily. And just get to the bone joint size and just scale them down for you there. So when you look at the bones, you can see how the animation is potentially created here. I can select these joints. They're like virtual bones that literally are placed inside the elements, enabling them to be able to be posed. So you basically rotate or translate, position, or rotate the bone, and the mesh, which is basically skinned to that bone, is what we call it, will then deform and move in a realistic way. If I play this, you can see the bones there moving. And that's how you create movement. That's how you create articulation for the mesh. In order to do that, we don't actually use the bones. We don't transform the bones directly. We use a rig, a control rig, which I can turn on. So I'll turn off the bones so you don't have to see them. But basically, we now have like handles on a puppet. These controllers control the bones deform the mesh, and that's how you get a pose. So, for example, if I take some of these controllers, I can move them up and down. It will move the bone inside the mesh will deform, and that's how you get articulation. With articulation, you create poses. And with poses, from one frame to another, you create animation. And that's how all of those animations that you see in movies and games and everything are done. So it's a very well-developed, well-established process. It's used in industry, as I say, everywhere. And we teach you this skill set. We teach you this from the ground up. You don't need any experience to start with. We introduce you to it slowly, and we build up your skill set gradually to the point where you can be very, very confident in creating and animating your own assets, 3D assets, which can go into films or games or standalone 3D animation. We can also look at lighting, so we can add lights to a scene, which enhances that surface detail. You can see I've got lights flashing there when the blast comes out of the weapon. And of course, if I go back to my shot cam, we can put everything against an environment and incorporate it into a 3D environment. So that's an overview of the process, overview of the skill sets and how we break them down. So you've got a bit of an idea about what's involved in the whole 3D pipeline, and that's what we call it, the 3D pipeline. And we teach you all of those skills. So what I'm going to show you just quickly is the process of animation. Animation is probably my speciality, and it's even though I have skills in all of these aspects I've built up over the years, I love animation. I love 2D animation as well. But I've sort of progressed to 3D animation, and I enjoy that the most of all. And I actually still, as well as teaching, I'm still engaged in the industry doing freelance jobs in 3D animation and building 3D assets. So with 3D, we basically use the same principles of animation that you might have heard recently, previously in Nick's talk on 2D. We want to create key poses, strong dynamic poses at certain keyframes, and then transition between those poses on different keyframes to create the illusion of movement. Now, there's a lot of principles that go into animation. There's anticipation arcs, squash and stretch, overlapping action, easing, timing and spacing, secondary action. All of those things that were established and developed by traditional 2D animators from the Disney era are applied in 3D. So if you're going to work at Pixar, or if you want to work at Animal Logic, or anywhere that's creating 3D animation, they expect to see the same level of application of those fundamental animation principles in 3D as you do in 2D. So to do that, as I said earlier, we don't draw the poses, we just simply pose the model. So you can see here, if I wanted, for example, here to have him, I'm going to extend the timeline, and I'm going to get him to basically just spin around and shoot his gun in the opposite direction. So maybe he's seeing another enemy coming up here in this direction here from the screen right. So we can basically grab these controllers and create a new pose. So what I'm going to do is go to another frame, say a little bit further on, and then I'm basically going to get some of these controllers and recreate a new pose. So, for example, the first thing that we typically do when we're creating poses is move from the body or the torso or the hips. And I can now basically rotate him here into, he's going to start to turn because he's seeing something maybe in the other direction. He can turn his head around and look in that other direction. So basically, we are now, at a point where we're starting to turn him, and we're trying to overlap the action so that his body turns, his head turns first, then his body. And because the gun is so heavy, we move the gun or the weapon a bit later on. So if I look at the weapon, I can move the weapon by literally just moving one of his hands, because another thing that we teach you how to do is to set up constraints. And what that will do is constrain the weapon. As you can see here, if I can move the weapon by just moving one arm. And what I've done is I've basically constrained that weapon so that it's actually going to pull his arm along with it. It's called a constraint. It's a bit technical, but we teach you how to do that sort of stuff as well. And you can see here, all I've got to do is position this weapon into a new position, and you can see he's starting to move his gun in that same direction that he's looking at. We don't want him to move it at exactly the same rate. Well, it's a bit heavy, this gun, so we want it to drag behind. We want to put overlapping action into this animation. There are other controls, many other controls that come with a rig like this. For example, twist. Here I can twist his arms. This one as well has a twist in it. So I can get this and twist this arm down. And basically start to build a new pose. Same with his foot. His foot has a twist. So maybe his foot's getting in the way. I can his knee. Maybe he starts to twist his knee here. We also have things like on the foot, we can rotate his foot up. We can give it a bit of a bank. And what I'm going to eventually do is just get him to position his foot. So he's going to take his foot. I don't want to break his foot. Off the ground. He's going to literally he's going to lift that foot as he starts to bring his body around. So once we've got this sort of pose set up that we sort of like, and obviously you put a bit of time into these poses to create strong silhouettes, strong clear silhouettes, strong lines of action, all of the classic stuff that you would do with drawing. You're basically applying them to the 3D pose as well. So I can actually select all of the raccoon. I've made a little button up here. I can select all those controllers and I can animate them. So if I just go to set a key, I'm setting a keyframe on these poses at this frame in the timeline. So if I set this key here, I'll set it on the gun as well. You can see now he's now moving his gun to the other side just by setting that key. It's like having a little puppet, having a little toy, but it's in 3D, it's in a virtual environment, and you're simply creating the pose on those keyframes to create the animation. The software will in between for you, because what you are doing is creating transforms, which are basically rotation, translation, with scale in a 3D environment. And so basically with transforms, with actual 3D transforms, the software knows how to in-between. It will in-between these for you as well. So if I go a little bit further along here, I can continue that movement. So if I just create another pose, again, I'm going to start with his torso, which is typically where you start when you're whenever you're creating a pose with a character. And I'm going to try and move him. I will move him a little bit over to this side. So now he's going to start to push towards this side. I can basically even up his body by twisting his belly, but he's basically pushing right out now with his hips. And most motion that we experience when we're moving comes from the hips first. So you can see here, I'm basically putting him into a position where he's really pushing off with this leg now, this foot. So to that foot, for example, I can get his leg, push him up, and bank him off, maybe get his toe still off the ground. So I really want him to start leaving. I'll get his toe back on the ground.
Okay, so Adam, we're almost out of time. So just
that's all
finishing
right.
up doing there.
Yep.
You're doing great
sure.
work.
So awesome. So look, if we're finished, if we're a bit short on time, you can see what I'm doing. I'm posing this character. What I've done is I've created one earlier, so I'll just play this one. So hopefully you'll be able to see this if I have to reshare. I'm not sure if I have to reshare. So now, are you seeing that at all, or should I reshare? I have to reshare. Can you see that new animation?
I can see the raccoon. Yes, I can see.
And you can see his new animation, like he's basically
maybe reshare, I think. Yeah,
I'll
try
reshare.
that.
Yeah. Just share this one I've created earlier. So not really seeing it now. Share. Not really seeing my screen.
Okay, keep your questions coming, guys, while we watch the last bit of Adam's presentation.
You seeing that one?
I can see your word, your file over there.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, it just seems like I'm unable to share that video. But basically, I continue the animation so that he steps to the side and animates. Here we go.
Okay, great.
Can you see that one?
Yeah, we can see that one.
Okay.
Just the sound. Do you want to share your sound there, Adam?
There's no sound on this. This is like this one is a play blast. So this one is I forgot to put this sound in. It's playing in the software, but you can see the new animation there where he steps to the side and he should have an extra couple of shots firing off to the enemies that are coming at him from the other side of the screen. Can you see that? So see how many shots is he firing there?
Great. Awesome work. Thank you so much, Adam. Great.
So yeah, it's just an overview into that process and a bit of a demo in Maya. And obviously, we haven't got enough time to really go through everything. But
no worries.
Hopefully that gives you a little bit of an insight into the skills that we teach you here in the subjects.
Great. Thanks, Adam. So I'm just sharing my screen. Can you see that there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you. All right. So, Adam, as you see, just showed a demo of what it looks like in a typical class studying 3D. So I'm going to go into a bit more detail about the course. So the 3D design course teaches you a range of skills on how to create 3D art and interesting 3D animated short films to prepare for a career in the film, animation, games, and design industries. So there's 3 different facets here. We've got film, which is like your visual effects you see in graphics such as in Avengers. You've got games where you're making environments and characters in a game setting, and then design, which is where you're creating digital marketing material. So through our electives, there were some questions in the chat about how we can diversify our skill set. And you can do that with our electives, especially if you're not sure what you want to do, 2D or 3D. We've got 4 electives in your final year that you can choose electives from film, from 2D animation, 3D modelling, and also film and video. And then you're also exposed to a range of subjects in your first year from all different study streams so that then you can major in your second and third year. So this means our graduates are more employable, more adaptable, and ready to succeed in the real world. And just as an example, we have 3 of our graduates here. First of all, Victor, he's a 3D artist. He does 3D modelling for robotics for a biomedical company called Kinetic. He was going to chat with us today, but he's flying home. So he'll be joining us in our January session. So check that out. I'll get the people on the chat to send you a link on that. Melrosa, she is our junior motion designer and animator. She focuses on 3D for commercials, social and marketing campaigns. And lastly, Jake, he is a 3D lighting artist and he focuses on 3D for games. He works at Plastic Wax, which is a visual effects and animation studio, and they specialise in pre-rendered computer graphics for video games, film and TV. So you can see the range of jobs you can get just by studying with us 3D design. And here's a snapshot of all the types of jobs you can get. There was a question in the chat earlier about, can I be a 3D artist? And yes, you can. You can also be a modeler, sculptor, lighter, rigger, to name a few. And you can be a 3D environmentalist, where you create grass and rocks, games and architecture. Now, delving in a little bit more into the 3 types of jobs that are essentially the subject matter, you're looking at modelling and sculpting firstly, animation and rigging. So I'm going to talk a bit about each one and provide some examples. First of all, modeler and sculptor, you're creating 3D representations of props, vehicles, worlds, creatures or characters using sophisticated computer graphics software such as Maya and Mudbox. And you would have seen Adam using Maya in the presentation as well. Some examples are dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, Woody and Buzz in Toy Story, and games like Fortnite and Call of Duty. Secondly, we have 3D animation. Here you're bringing imaginary characters and creatures to life, combining accurate body mechanics with stylized actions, expressive gestures, and appealing performances. These types of things could be used in cartoon animation like The Simpsons and Rick and Morty. Lastly, rigging. Now, rigging is a technique used in skeletal animation for representing a 3D character model using a series of interconnected digital bones. This bone structure is used to manipulate the 3D model with the parts animation, and you would have seen that in the demo. The idea for this animation is to try and make it intuitive, easy as possible, realistic and organic. And this is a technical creative skill set that is highly sought after by the film, game development and animation studios. And that shows in our employment rate of 77%. We have various initiatives that connect you to the industry rather. We have our internship program of 120 hours so you can get some direct hands-on work experience. And Tamara, who works in the internship area, will talk more about that. We have our Forward, which is a 6-month project where a team of you work on a project that gets assessed by industry professionals. And a lot of our graduates have got jobs through the internship or the Forge. Lastly, we have our Launchpad, where you develop soft skills such as interview skills, creating a resume, how to market yourself, and portfolio development. You can see some logos down there of some companies we are connected with, Sweaty Chair, Flying Back Studios, Kapow Pictures, and you'll get to watch Sandra Walters coming up soon in our industry panel talking about her work. And we've had a graduate called Alex Popesco. She's an asset builder working at Framestore in the UK. And here you can see some of the outstanding work we have. This is an example of work from our Animation and Effects Awards Festival, which is a globally renowned festival that recognises the best work in animation and visual effects. Indeed, 4 of our ART 3D student animations were named finalists in the student category of this festival in 2019. And I'll just name a couple. Project Sunlight and Corrupted were the finalists last year in 2020. If you'd like to watch these videos, check out our YouTube channel, ART Creative. We can pop it in the chat as well. All right, so our next intake is in February, and we have 3 trimesters, February, May and September. We've been delivering classes in virtual mode due to COVID, but we're back on campus next year for face-to-face learning. You can also take a blended learning approach. Also, all our classes are recorded, so you can watch them back if you miss a class. Now, we've got 3 courses here: diploma, 1 year, associate degree, 2 years, and our bachelor is done in the accelerated approach in 2 years or the standard approach in 3 years. If you take the accelerated, it's 4 subjects per trimester. Standard is 2 to 3 subjects per trimester. You're looking at, for each subject, about 3 hours of study per week. The prices are here for the domestic and international, and for domestic Australian citizens, rather, you can apply for fee help. Alrighty, so we're going to have Adam come back on. So Adam, would you mind taking over and talking more about our subjects? Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Charlotte. So you can see there, year 1, we have Introduction to 3D, which is the first subject that you do. Obviously introduces you to the software, to Maya, and to some of those basic skill sets that incorporate modelling, 3D modelling, 3D surfacing, a little bit of rigging, and not animation in the first semester. And then as you move through in the first trimester, in the third trimester, you start to do 3D animation and 3D modelling. So that's obviously where you can start to learn the basics, the fundamental principles of 3D animation, applying those traditional principles to 3D. 3D modelling is a little bit different. It uses software called ZBrush, and we start to incorporate sculpting in that. I'll talk about that in a little while. And then as you progress through the course in year 2, advanced 3D animation, and you can start to branch out into advanced modelling. And then you can move into the Forge or the Launchpad, where you can start to apply some of these skills in group-based production environments. In the first instance, digital storytelling, creative drawing, audio design, all of those things are common to whatever discipline you want to study. So if you want to go into 3D or film or games, you're still getting the fundamental instruction in some of the common subjects to all of those disciplines. So creative drawing is important, and editing is important, digital storytelling. So these are the fundamental skill sets that sort of underpin all of the disciplines. So when you're starting off, you're doing common subjects, and then you start to specialise as you move through that course. Do you want to go to the next one? Yep. These are the bit more of a detailed breakdown of the subjects. 3D introduction, as I said before, is that first subject where we introduce you to Maya, and you can see some examples of student work there. In this subject, you do get exposed to the entire 3D pipeline that I was referring to before. So 3D modelling, 3D surfacing with the colours and the detail that you put onto your characters, and then 3D rigging. We get you to rig it. There's no animation in this subject, but we get you to pose your character in this subject, then light it and render it as a character turntable. This is great, this subject, because all of those designs there, all of the designs in the subject are students' own original unique design. So you come up with your own idea. You come up with your own character. You design what it's going to look like. You design what sort of surfaces you want to put on it, what style you want it to be, whether it's cartoony or realistic. All of that is up to you. So you can really unleash your imagination and have fun with your own 3D characters. And next one is, I believe, 3D animation. So if you want to continue with your 3D specialization, you start to get into 3D animation. And this is where we expand your skill base in Maya And this is where you really apply those animation principles, squash and stretch, arcs, anticipation, overlapping action, easing, timing and spacing. All of the things that go into animation are very important to apply to 3D animation, because if you don't apply those skills, you can get 3D animation that looks very rigid or very stiff. And we try to emulate the 2D animation technique by creating animation that's more organic, that's more flowing, that's more convincing and more appealing in terms of how it's been created. In this subject, we provide you with the rigs. You don't create any of your own characters. We give you these basic learning rigs. And as I said earlier, we teach you the basics, starting off very slowly, so that you become confident with the tools, you become confident with the software, and you become confident with the process of incorporating animation principles into 3D animation. So the focus is on 3D animation. It's not on modeling, texturing, rigging, etc. in this subject. And next one, I think, is advanced 3D animation. In this subject, you basically take your 3D animation skills further. And in this is great, this subject. Students really love this subject because, again, it's your own unique story, your own unique characters. You create a short 3D animated film. And students, it's challenging because you have to do everything. You have to source the rigs, you have to source the background or build the background props. You have to come up with, write the script. You have to sort of devise the characters and their character arcs, and even record your own dialogue or get friends, etc., to record dialogue and incorporate that within the film as well. And then you have to animate it and render it out, light it and render it out. This example here from Rory, one of our students, won an award. So he did a great job completely by himself. So this is, each student makes their own short animated film. And in that process, you get to incorporate more advanced levels of 3D animation, including more acting, more performance animation, as they call it, facial expressions, lip sync, dialogue, and you're telling your story through 3D animation. So it's a great folio piece that you end up with this at the end of this subject. You can put it on your reel and show it to studios and hopefully secure work in that industry. And next we're on to 3D modelling. So this is what I talked about before, which I haven't demonstrated today. It's sculpting, digital sculpting in ZBrush. ZBrush is a different package, and basically the way it works, ZBrush, is that you can design and sculpt very high density models. What that means is the polygon meshes that are used in these assets, the software is very much designed to be able to handle millions of polygons, literally millions of polygons, which enable you to sculpt amazing levels of detail. You can put in even down to pores in the skin, wrinkles, scales, all of the really advanced high-level detail that you see in dragons and dinosaurs in those big movies, particularly for realistic CGI-based 3D assets, is created in this sort of software, ZBrush. And we take you through this process of creating the asset in ZBrush, but then extracting that detail and baking it down onto a more optimized, production-ready asset in Maya. So that is also part of the industry workflow, where you take high-density detail but put it onto a more optimized, lower poly mesh, which can be then animated. And the detail is basically expressed as a displacement map or a normal map. These are different texture mapping techniques which enable the illusion of detail without having a very high density mesh. So it's a whole process, a whole pipeline. And we get a lot of students that are coming in that perhaps aren't interested in 3D animation so much, but love sculpting love putting those sorts of that level of detail in. This one was created by one of my students, obviously as some sort of arachno woman, spider woman type creation, which is pretty interesting. And advanced 3D modelling, again, takes that further. In this subject, we take those skills further, and particularly with a particular focus on creatures. So creature modelling is a highly sought-after skill in high-end studios, as you can imagine. Aliens and monsters and creatures and dragons can't be motion captured. They can't be downloaded. They need to be designed, built, and sculpted so that they look realistic, so that they look convincing. So if you put them in a film, and I'm sure you're all aware how amazing some of the modern creature effects and creature animations for films, particularly at studios like Weta Digital in New Zealand and ILM, of course. And so we basically give you a bit of also a foundation in anatomy. So here we also talk about, the various landmarks of anatomy, how you can take something, say, from the real world, like a bird or a bat or a crocodile, and then extend that into an imaginary creature. So it's a lot of fun. You really let your imagination go nuts with this subject, and students tend to love it. So that's the next one along.
Okay, so we're just running a bit out of time, so I'll take over here. So thank you so much, Adam, for that. That was really interesting.
That's right.
All right, beautiful. So just to let you know, we've got our Forge panelists here from a range of different areas that what I mentioned earlier about our Forge project. So you'd be showing this to industry professionals. Now to enter, we have 2 scholarships which you can enter through our domestic Initiate, and for our international students on the right, we've got a scholarship as well. So basically for this, you get a brief which you tackle the best way you can. You submit it to us and we send it to our educator who assesses it. The winner gets 50% off the first term of the tuition fees and 50% off the last term. So it's a great opportunity. So it's for our bachelor degree only. You can apply through the website, and applications close on January 7th for the February intake. So just to recap on our intake here is February, May and September for next year, and we're back on campus, which is exciting. Now to enrol, you just need to fill in an application form, then you submit documents, then we will guide you through the fee help and for our international students, a visa application. So here are our ways to apply. You can apply through our website. International students, please email us on international@ait.edu.au. Melbourne students, you can put your AIT as your first preference for VTAC. You can also apply directly through UAC. And just to let you know, guys, if you don't know already, our entry requirements, you do not need an ATAR, just your HSC. So we just need the certificate certified and photo ID as well. So any further questions, if you need more information, do not hesitate to contact us. You've got Donna from Melbourne, me, myself, Charlotte from Sydney, and Thais from our international team. So without further ado, we're going to do our question and answer session. So take it away, Donna.
Hi, awesome.
And I'll get Adam back on to do our Q&A.
Awesome. So thank you so much. We are running very, very short of time. So what I was going to suggest, if Adam can hear me, I think what we might do is get Adam to stay online on the chat for a little bit, because I know there was a few burning questions and we've only got about 4 minutes. But I will start with one, and then we'll get Adam to sort of hang around on chat before the film session starts. This one I think we definitely should touch on. So how does 3D design tie into filmmaking, Adam? That was a question from Paul.
Okay, cool. Hi, Paul. Yeah, I'm seeing all the questions now. Basically, there's a lot of them there. So filmmaking, CGI, computer graphic imagery, as it was termed, relates to 3D assets that you see in films, like I mentioned, things like dragons, dinosaurs, spaceships in Star Wars, all of the things that you can't film have to be created virtually. And most of them are 3D in their creation because they can be shot from different angles. What happens is the asset gets created, rendered and lit and rendered to match the background of the film, and then composited into that background plate. So we do teach you that. In fact, in the Forge subjects, which are production subjects at the end of your time of your course, where you get to work with other students, we often integrate film students with 3D students or even 2D students to actually bring different assets together, those different disciplines together. So we do teach you that aspect in the later stages of the course, but that's basically how they're integrated. They get composited into a live action frame or a live action sequence, and they have to obviously look like convincing, like they're matching in terms of the lighting and in terms of the detail, etc., for it to work.
Awesome. That's great. So what we might do, Adam, if that's okay, would you mind sort of hanging around on chat just for a bit, just to sort of like speak to, there was quite a few questions, I believe, from Eva and Paul.
Yeah, sure.
And that will sort of help manage that time. Thank you so much.